Okay, we're back. So we've been through OCDI, a brief introduction. We got a little bit more than we bargained for. Temesia, you introduced us to freedom and discipline. So that's stuck, at the top of our minds, and we might
Right,
not understand it completely right now.
right.
But let's just make our way through OCDI, okay?
Yes.
So let's start with O, which is order.
Order.
Give us some details on order. What is
Yes.
order?
Life with Liliana and friends.
Okay, so order. When we think of order, most often the image or idea that comes into mind is things in a row, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or it could be walking into your child's bedroom and everything is structured.
yes,
Going into their room and making sure all their dirty clothes is in the laundry basket.
yes. They made
That
their
they
bed.
Right, there's
Yes,
neatness and tidiness. So there's a bit of confusion too, just like how I was sharing about freedom and discipline. There's a
okay.
bit of confusion when culturally today we refer to things having order. So in some ways, it's militant, especially for a child. So when we're
Okay.
talking about order, we're talking about the sense of order for a child. In a child's development, Liliana, within a child, the child will know and start to pick up places in their lifetime, milestones, where they start to want to have order in their life.
Okay.
I don't know if you can maybe recall in your son's life or in your daughter's life where you've noticed times when they were little where they'd always put things in order, maybe their
Okay.
shoes.
Right.
When,
Yes.
and sometimes you hear the family go, oh, look how adorable, he's setting the shoes.
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
oh man, my child doesn't like to step on mud. He always
Right.
wants to. So that right there, Liliana, is a little sense of order in a child's development.
Okay. I
And
see.
you suddenly start to see it develop and grow. And it's best when you see it when you're not pushing it towards a child, where you're not shoving
Okay.
it down their throat and you're telling them, you need to have order, you need to clean this, you need to clean
Right.
this. So sometimes it's great when you hear the word order that you see that sense of order is by repetition and it's something that
Right.
they constantly want to do. So it might be your child, you'll notice your child go for a glass of water at a specific time every night. And that's
Okay.
what you see, that's that repetition coming in. Now, I
Right.
know you're like, what does that repetition have to do with my child's schoolwork if I'm trying to help my child at home during this COVID period? But if you start to invest in those little sense of orders that you catch your child doing, that
Yes.
repetition, your child will slowly take initiative to bring into their schoolwork and just holistically, really, whether it's their
Okay.
schoolwork, whether it's their chores, whether it's their timetable at home, you'll slowly see the initiative coming out when that repetition is constantly taken in by the child's initiative and not really the
Okay.
parent creating that militant perspective where you're like, I
Right.
told you 6 a.m. every morning, you have to do this and this and this and this. But
Yes.
once you create that schedule, like what we were sharing in that
Yes.
session we had, your child will know the boundaries and start to realize, okay, so mom said 6 a.m. I need to do this. So they slowly taking that
Yeah.
initiative and that sense of order doesn't come in as militant, but comes in as an initiative where the child just takes on that special role. And I know you're saying, will I? Are you sure I'm going to see this in my child the next day? So it takes 3 months to change a habit, Liliana.
Right. Right.
It takes 3 months. So if you start
Okay.
today, you might not see it tomorrow, you might not see it next week, but it'll take 3 months of just consistent discipline and order. And you'll slowly see your child grow in that order at home.
I see.
Yes.
So, okay, there's a few things there. First of all, I
Mm.
was starting to think, okay, if you're talking about that order and not being militant, then
Right,
does my schedule contradict that?
right.
But you've explained that it doesn't.
It
It
doesn't.
supports it
It
supports that
supports it.
order, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. So when you said like we catch our child, so if I see my child doing a certain thing, how do I suppose, harness that? Like, what? How do I build around it? Are you saying that when we catch them, we just be observant,
Right.
or do we actually commend them, or we encourage them to do so? Because I think also the personality types will start to come out in different things that they do.
Mhm.
And that might then inform what these little, habits or consistent routines that they start doing for themselves.
Right.
So when we catch, like, what do we do? Like, we notice it, what will we do with that information?
Okay, great. So having a positive reply is always important. And I know here in the Pacific, Liliana, we do struggle with that a lot.
Yes,
We tend to throw in a lot of negativity or just shine a bright light on the child when they're doing something amazing. And, just from my experience, you hear comments like, wow, just today now you want to go and do everything in
right,
order, or it's, look now, we want to do
right,
everything properly, like, wow, big boy now, big girl, looking after our things. Only when mommy buys you something, you catch yourself when you say only when mommy buys something, right away. That's your discipline from that perspective.
right.
You're going towards we'll share it more in discipline, but you're starting to hit on that really hard surface of having a child to rebel against it because you've created that militant reward where you're like, do
Yes,
something nice, and then I'm going to give you this. And so the child, even though he or she is taking the initiative to create that
yes,
sense of order for himself on
yes,
his own, you've made it something to be militant for you. You've created that
yes.
environment where you're like, you're doing it because I'm telling you to do it. Right away, your freedom and discipline foundation slowly cracks.
Right. I
So
see. I
there it
understand.
is.
So why is it important to have a sense of order? Why is it important for kids to have a sense of order?
So with children, sequence is very important.
Okay.
Steps. In language, it's something we teach all the time, even when they go into reading, Liliana. When you're teaching a child to read, you're always, okay, let's start. Let's learn the alphabets. And then you learn the blends. B and L together makes bull. And then you move on to reading words. And so there's a sequence. And
Yeah.
so when you break that sequence in a child, that's when they start to scream and yell. For example,
Right.
if you have a certain way that you want them to do the dishes, right? And so
Yeah.
you say, okay, listen, when you wash the dishes, get the Axion, make sure to clean it properly. This sink is for washing it, for soaping it up. This sink you rinse, and then you put the dishes away. So
Right.
you put it on the rack to dry. So in everything we do, there's always a sequence. There's always steps to follow.
I see.
And I know
Okay.
sometimes, we're in a rush. The day catches us and we're just running around like crazy in a day. Some things happen. We have detours and we tend to throw in shortcuts for
Yeah.
our children. And like, just quickly wash it. Let's go. We gotta go.
Right.
And right away, you're breaking those sequences for the child, where
Okay.
that sense of order. One day you're teaching sense of order, and the next day you're just like creating shortcuts for the
Right.
child. And so there's no stability, there's no consistency
Yes.
in that
Yes.
order. And it plays a vital role, even with their schoolwork, like we were talking about spatial
Right.
awareness. When
Yes.
you're creating that space at home for them to learn, they have a sense of order. I do this in the morning, then I have to go to my learning space. I'm only allowed to do this. Maybe, for example, I know this might, you might feel offended by it, or I don't know how you'll take it. For example, when the Fiji game went on
Yes.
and the learning space, you have a computer in your child's space, or their
Yes.
space is somehow very close and the game's on, you're like, oh, just stop learning, we have to watch the game you
Man,
know
I did that, Temesia.
I'm so sorry, but
No, and I'm not insulted, but because he was like, Mom, I'm in class. And I was like, son, Fiji is playing in the Olympics. Your teacher won't mind coming. He's like, really? I said, yeah, come.
right, I know. um
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
lot you start to realize like, oh no, it was
Yes.
like the other day where it's like, just just tell your teacher you have to do something, a personal matter. and
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's something like feeding the dog,
Right.
or it's something like, I don't know, just something that breaks that sense of order in your child's daily routine. Now, I'm not saying that you need like that super sense of order. For some children, it's okay. They're able to deal with that positive stress. That's something we'll talk
Right.
about. There's negative stress and positive stress, Liliana. Negative stress for a child would be telling them, oh my goodness, turn off the light. you're not paying the electricity bill. That's
Right.
negative stress for a child. The child doesn't need that stress, worrying about bills, right? The positive stress they need to have is, I've given you boundaries, I've given you chores, there's a timetable for you to follow. That's
Yes.
positive for them. That's the type of stress they need on a daily basis. So when you start to create negative stress for them that comes in, it really creates a huge shift in that sense of order for a child.
Okay. I'm
Mm.
getting very convicted in this
Oh,
conversation. And so I just, when you're talking, so it sounds to me like the sense of order is,
mm,
like a sense, like it's like our being. Okay. So what happens in the
yes,
emotional space? But that also relates to the order relates to the physical, because it,
right.
it it manifests in the physical. So our
Yes,
sense manifests in the physical. And when
yes.
you think it's so important, I now understand that sequence is so important
So
in
important
learning, in life, because
in
things
life.
happen in sequence. When you're
Yes,
doing a project, you need to start by first
right.
diagnosing that,
And
everything has a
yes.
sequence. And
Mm,
so it starts from the sense of it,
mm,
then it manifests into the physical. And so they actually work
exactly.
together, right?
They
They work
do.
together.
There's one terminology I love to use all the time, and it's multisectoral approach.
Yes.
All of these areas in a child's life, in an adult's life, or just in a human being in general, they all interconnect. They all work together. It's integrated. You can't
Yes.
do this and have sense of order. It's a
Right.
no-no. You can't, there's certain things, all of these areas work together.
Okay.
You cannot have sense of order outside and try and bring in that discipline for a
Right.
child. You cannot have independence flowing right through and there's no concentration at all in it. So they
Okay.
all play a vital role. Yeah,
Okay. Awesome. So just to finish off, because we've already talked about so much in a
I
short period
know.
of time, can you just help us understand? Maybe give us one or two things that we can take away and just implement tomorrow. Like if I had to come and try and do
Mhm.
something with Gideon tomorrow
Yes,
in this space, what would you suggest?
yes. So bringing in that sense of order, it could be the first thing in the morning and giving them
Right.
that routine. For example, taking out the trash.
Okay. Yes.
There's specific days, like for the area I live in, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they know there's a sequence. They go through the whole house. They find out where all the trash cans are, the bins are. They empty it out into the main one and they move out. When they have only that one responsibility and that sense of order, it will slowly be a ripple of effect into every other area in their environment, whether it's their learning environment, whether it's their home environment, whether it's their church environment, whether it's any environment that they step into, you will slowly see that sense of order be a ripple of effect. So it could
Okay.
be giving them responsibility the next day. And even could be those little discipline tactics that you have in the house. For example, if they spill a glass of water
Right.
and there's a specific way that you'd like it wiped, whether it's getting tissue or getting a mop. And
Yes.
sometimes you frighten a child where you're like,
Yes.
go, 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 get them off, get them off, get them off. And then, and they're like, mop it, mop it. No, the other way, the other way, the other way. And then at the end of it, the child is like screaming for help and you're frustrated because they didn't mop it. And now the water has gone onto the couch or on the rug. And now you have to sun out the rug. And it's a whole process. And
Right.
so those times when you create the sequence where you have to bring in that self-reflection and
Right.
start, not bringing in that anger or that frustration and bringing in that patience and humility that we talked about in the beginning with freedom and discipline and,
Yes.
and slowly bringing in that sequence pattern where you start to
Right.
do things. And I know that this is a huge struggle for us in the Pacific.
Yes. Yes.
We're not as consistent as the other side of the world, right?
Right.
There's this saying that I'm not a fan of. It's Oile, always on Fiji time, which I'm
Yes.
not a fan of,
Refuse that.
I know that Fijians can
Yes.
be on time
Yes. I
and I know
agree.
words bring life or death. So if we
Yes.
constantly speak that over us, that's going to be something we will have a generational curse and hold it up
Yes.
for
I
life.
know. I
And
know.
so for your child, those little things, creating that sequence. Okay, bring
Yes.
the mop, bring the bucket. Now make sure it's dry, put it on it, squeeze it, put it in.
Yes.
Having that orderly sense of order for that child right away.
Right. Okay.
And you don't have to tell them, you see how I've taught you how to do that, Mom? Starting from next time that happens, that's exactly what you do. And slowly, right away, Liliana, that independence creeps in.
Yes.
And then every time your child spills something or has to do their schoolwork and doesn't know how to save a document because they're doing online learning or even following instructions in
Yes.
reading comprehension, that little sequence of sense of order that you've just taught, even with mopping, ripple effects right into it. And they know, okay, no, Mom said this is how we do the mop. Dad said this is how we mop. This is how I read my directions. I can't answer the questions if I haven't even read the story. So they know there's a
Right.
sequence to follow.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah, that's so good. And I suppose for us, we need to think about like that great example of just when you spill something. Sometimes we're more
Yes.
concerned about our couch or our cushion,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and you know, the couch, it can get wet and it'll dry, but
Yes,
the
it'll
impact
dry.
that it has to the child by just, you know, speaking
Yes.
out without, you know, thinking is
Yes.
far more will create far more damage,
It
right?
does.
So
There
we
was
need to,
this, sorry,
yeah,
Lillian, there was this story that that we've always shared about to speak to educators whenever we meet them. And it's a story and it goes so new children come into your classroom, you have packets of crayon. You give it to them for the day. They return it and it's all broken and torn and ripped apart. And the
yes.
teacher looks at it and goes, "Oh my goodness, I just bought this for like 9.99 and look what they did to the crayons." Tomorrow, and the school head had told you every day, give out a new packet. And the next day you decide, you know what? Look what they've done to the 9.99 crayon.
Right,
That's a lot of money. Give them the same crayon because they can't respect the crayon.
right.
Right away, you valued crayon than a child's life.
Wow.
And you know, you need to stand still and realize, what do you value more, your child's life or the rug?
Yes,
That's a learning moment right there.
yes,
And
yes,
that's a life investment.
yes,
That mopping skill is not just going to help your child for that day. It's going to help your child
yes,
deal with frustration when something goes wrong at the
yes,
at the supermarket. What is the sequence to follow? Do you just stand there and yell at the cashier, or do you say, I need to see your manager, and then
yes.
follow the sequence to
Follow
dealing
the
with the
sequence.
situation? And so, yeah, it's
Yes,
definitely a deep one to
wonderful.
talk about.
It
Order,
is.
yeah.
I'm like thinking, like I want to bring up something else, and I realize, okay, hang on, no, we're going through OCDI, Liliana.
Yes,
But I think let's stop there. Let's just take a
right.
pause. Let's just allow that to digest a little bit.
Mm,
Make sure our notes up to date. For those who are watching, maybe you can go grab a cup of tea. We're gonna take a very
yes,
short break, and then let's come back and talk about consistency. Yes, C.
yes,
C for consistency, right? Oh man, I
yes.
can
See, for
teach all you.
consistency and concentration.
Okay, okay, man, did I make it up? Is it really
No,
concentration?
no, no.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Consistency is a strong part of C.
Thank you for your grace with me and my my
I love it.
interpretation.
I love our conversations. I'm
Okay,
learning
well,
too.
yeah, awesome. So we'll see all you guys very, very shortly. Okay, see you soon.